Hello everyone, today we're going to work on building our basic switch topology for our basic Cisco labs. So one of the things we're going to do first is we have to know what devices we're going to be using. So if we take a look at our labs, our topology that we set up, one of the things you're going to see is we have switches. There's no routers. So we're working strictly with switches here. So we click on network devices and then we click switches. So one of the things is we're going to be using three 2960 switches. So we're going to do one. Let me expand this a little more so you can see here. One, two, three switches. And of course, we're going to need a multi-layer switch. So there's two, if you see there's 3560s here and 3550s. So we're going to grab a 3560 switch and put it here. Okay. So we could rename these switch A, switch B, and switch C. And then this is our multi-layer switch right here. So we now have our switches. Now we have to add the host devices. And remember what I said. We're going to put a hub here, okay? So we're going to add a PT hub right here, okay? And the next thing we'll do, since we have that PT hub right there, we will now go ahead and add some hosts. So we're going to add a couple hosts for each switch, three hosts. So we're going to do PC, one, two, and three. And then we're going to do one, two, three, and four. And then we're going to do one, two, and three. So just keep in mind the PCs that you're adding. And then we're going to add a server. So we're going to put a server over here. So that's our server over here. So we have our server here. So we're going to just say this is our server. Now we can label the server anything we want later on. So now we have all our devices on the screen. Now we have to cable these devices. So again, we have to know what type of cables we're going to use and how we're going to use these cables to get everything to work. So the first thing we want to do is click on our cable connections right here. And then we're going to use straight cables for all the PCs to the switches. So let's do all the PCs. Remember, we're using port 1, port 6, and port 10. So we start off with PC 0, fast Ethernet. We're going to put it in port 1. And PC 1, we're going to put in port 6. And then PC 2, we're going to put in port 10. And then we'll do the same for the other one. PC 3 is going to go into port 1. Hub 0, we're going to put it in port 6. So we just fast Ethernet 0. We're going to drop it in port 6. And then PC4, we're going to put in port 10. And we do the same here again. Now for the hub, PC5, we're going to put in port 1 and PC6. We could put these in any ports. You don't have to, just do the same as I'm doing. You could put them in any port because they're coming from the hub. Then the next thing we'll do is we'll get PC7 in port 1, PC8 in port 6. As you can see, I'm clicking on the switch now. and PC9 on port 10. So we now have those set up. And then we're going to go to the multi-layer switch and we are going to put in F01. We're going to put the server on F01. So there we go. So we have all of our switches set up, all of our devices that's connected to the switches set up. So now we're going to connect the switches. So we're going to use a crossover cable, okay, to do it. Now we don't have to because some of the ports on these switches are configured, auto configured with MDIX. All right. So, but we are not going to do that. We're going to use the crossover cable based on what your CCNA notes and everything tells you. If you're connecting similar devices, you want to use a crossover cable. So we're going to use the crossover cable, but later on when we talk about ports and the different type of ports and how we could configure the ports for different things, then I'll show you auto MDIX and how it works. Okay? Or maybe I'll show you here. So we're going to do crossover G01 to G01. And then from A again, you're going to do G02 to G02. So as you can see, we're connecting the gigabit ports. And then from B, you're going to do G01 to C, G01. And then from C to the multi-layer, you're going to do G02 to G02. And this is the basic configuration of our switch. I just added devices, I cabled it, and we set everything up. Now, when it comes to assigning the IP addresses, what I'll do is go to the DHCP server and we'll give the DHCP server an IP address. Now, this is not in the video that we've configured. We're going to give the DHCP server an IP address. So we're going to go to desktop and IP configuration. Now we're going to give it a static IP address. So we're going to click in here. We're going to do 172.16.0.100. And the subnet mask, we're going to use 3255. So I could take this out and I'll type in 255.255.255.0. So those of you that are doing subnetting, I'll do a subnetting video so you could watch that later on. So the default gateway is going to be 172.16.0.1. The DNS server is going to be the same as this DHCP server, which is going to be 172.16.0.100. When we talk about IPv6, we'll configure IPv6 from down here. So that is the IP address for the DHCP server. The next thing we're going to go do now is we're going to go to services because we have to turn on DHCP. Now we're using DHCP version 4. Now, later on in the class, you'll learn about DHCP and I'll show you how to configure DHCP on a router and also on a Windows box. And we could also do it on Linux. So you get a feel of DHCP in the different environments that you can use it for and how it actually works. So DHCP assigns IP addresses to the nodes. So we're going to click on DHCP and we're going to turn it on. So here's a default pool that you already have. It's a default server pool that you have. All right, we can use the default pool or we can modify the pool. So in your case, you could use the default pool. So the gateway, like we said, is 172.16.0.1. The DNS server is 172.16.0.100. And we're going to start the IP address from 200. All right, 172.16.0.200. We're going to need, let's say, 15 IP addresses. We're not going to put TFTP. We're not going to put a wireless LAN controller. And we're going to click on save. Now, once you click on save, it saves this. Now this server is now a DHCP server. All right. Now if you want to make it a HTTP server, you click on HTTP and HTTP is on. We could later on, I'll show you how you can edit this and do all the cool stuff with it. All right. And here is email. So we can set up email. We can set up a domain name. I'll show you how to do all of that. Here's FTP. Later on, I'll show you how to do all of that. So this server, we can make it an FTP server, an email server, an NTP server. We can make it a lot of different things. So for now, we're just going to leave it with DHCP, and this is DNS. So DNS, we could give it a name. We'll come back. We'll set all of this stuff up. So that's it for that. So now we could actually test to see if one of these PCs can get an IP address. So we can click on this. We click on desktop. We're going to go to IP configuration and we're going to change it to DHCP. And let's see. Bang, we got an IP address 172.16.0.200. So this is how you'll set yours up. And then we could go close this out. And now we could do a test. We could do a command. We could test the connectivity. So we could do ping and we could ping the DHCP server 172.16.0.100. And voila, here we go. So we have connectivity. So we just set up, we know now that we could get an IP address from DHCP. We know DHCP works. Now, if we go back to our topology when it comes to the switches, you will see that the switch has an IP address. So if this switch, we set the default gateway to 172.16.0.1. So if we do ping 172.16.0.1, we will not get a reply because that hasn't been configured. The switches have not been configured. So if it hasn't been configured, we would not get an IP address from it, or we would not get a response, sorry, from it. So that's something for you to know. So that's it, guys. That's the basic configuration of our basic topology setup, sorry, of our switches. The next video that you're going to look at will tell you about basic switch configuration. So just look out for that. And there, I'm putting them in a series so you could actually go through them and actually see how they work. So thank you, and I'll see you on the next video.